Who Watches the Rewatchers, a Buffy rewatch podcast.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to Who Watches the Rewatchers, our Buffy the Vampire Slayer rewatch podcast. My name's Jared, and I'm with my good buddy Alan. How you doing today?
Hey, doing great, man. The semester is in full swing, and I'm back to teaching. So the way that my schedule works is I teach generally 2 days a week, Tuesdays and Thursdays. And on Tuesdays, I do all of my lecturing. On Thursdays, we do all of the manual stuff, because it's digital art stuff. So I just came away from doing an Illustrator lesson, and next I'm going to be doing a Logic Pro audio lesson, so on and so forth. But, I like the days when I'm teaching skills better than the days when I'm talking, is what I'm coming down to. I don't mind talking on a podcast, but I hate lecturing.
I was going to say, I look forward to the days that we record this because today's it's Thursday, but it's like my Friday because I'm off on Fridays. And it means Wednesday night I get to stay up a little later and watch Buffy, which is so cool. And then I get to nerd out with you. And it makes me have all sorts of little fantasies about doing more content creation in the area of anything kind of 40 and just like talking about, this episode we're going to talk about today has the words astral projection in it. And I have this fascination, as do so many people, with cryptozoology and with UFOs and with the paranormal and the world of sci and then just science fiction, fantasy, horror. And, I just have little fantasies about the intersection between that and philosophy, religion, faith, and doing more of that stuff. So it's always kind of a delight for me to sit with you. And
sure,
as I segue, our episode today is episode 10 of season 1, and it's called Nightmares. That's what we're going to be talking today. I will tell you, oddly enough, I fell asleep to this episode last night as it was a little late for me.
Sure.
So I literally fell asleep to an episode called Nightmares.
Did you have any?
No, I don't. Not that I know of.
That's good. That's good.
Not that I recall anyway. But it's kind of an interesting episode in the first season because we have one of two kinds of episodes, it seems. One has to do with the Master, which has to do with kind of the larger overarching mythology of Buffy, where she fits within the kind of the Slayer world, the calling she has. And then you have the monster of the week. And they can always explain that feature as being, well, we're on the Hellmouth. It's the center of, it's a convergence of mystical powers. So weird things happen. Last episode, we had the weird demons and the puppeteers, the puppet stuff, and funny, humorous things about Cordelia Chase's hair. And today, we have a mix. We have something with the Master, yet we have just weird, uncanny things that are taking place. Agreed with that? It's a mix episode?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that as Buffy goes along in future seasons, they do a little bit better job of doing something of a mix. Like there's a little callback to whatever the overarching story is. I think we really see that in season 5, and we'll talk about that when we get there, however long that takes to get there. But yeah, this one's definitely a mix where we have. I felt like they were trying to set up a lot of things with the Chosen One, and I'm looking forward to talking about in a few episodes when we get to the ultimate fate of the Chosen One. I'm looking forward to talking about what I think went wrong with that particular concept. Okay. But for now, the Chosen One's still a big deal. And the Master is definitely causing Buffy some sleepless nights.
Yeah.
But I actually think that's how the episode opens, is with Buffy having a nightmare about the Master. But I think that works.
Anymore, let me ask a question about TV.
Sure.
Is this what's called a cold open?
Yeah, it absolutely is. I mean, a lot of people call it a teaser. My favorite teaser of all time, by the way, the one that got me interested in thinking about teasers, was when I was a much younger man. There was an episode of The X-Files that came on. It was actually the first episode of The X-Files I ever saw. Do you know this one? It starts off with this couple driving down the road, and the dude looks at the girl and he says, "I don't want to scare you, but I think I'm falling in love with you." And the girl says, "That's sweet, but it is our first date. And then just about that moment, the car breaks down, like the car sputters out, and you could actually see the girl rolling her eyes, right? She thinks he somehow planned this, right? And so about that moment, as the car breaks down, a UFO lands in front of them, right? And these two aliens come. You know this one?
Go ahead, though.
These two aliens are coming towards the couple. And the girl says, Harold, what are those things? And he says, how the hell should I know? So then, of course, they get knocked out and the aliens are taking the couple back to their ship. And then this other ship comes down and this big red thing comes out. And one of the aliens looks at the other one and says, hey, what the hell is that thing? And the other alien says, how the hell should I know? That was my favorite cold open of all time.
It's good. Yeah. I always think of cold opens with comedies, but I mean, technically speaking, that's what's happening here. We have this setup with Buffy, who is running away from the Master, and she's in his underground lair, and it just starts there. So you're like, oh, okay, well, how do we end up here? And then she's getting choked by him, and it's completely bizarre because this is not how Buffy behaves or speaks. She's being fearful. She's the victim. And then you wonder what's going on. Well, her mother wakes her up. She's shaking her awake, standing over her and telling her, hey, wake up. And that's the trick of it, is you were in a dream. And at that moment she says, hey, don't forget, because they're just kind of getting ready for school, but on the way to school, don't forget your dad, he's coming to pick you up for the weekend. And so Buffy is now trying to set down the path of thinking about her home life in a way that we haven't addressed yet. We know that her parents aren't together, but we haven't really got to any of that trauma. And she starts through the episode actually sharing some with Willow about her fears, which is kind of, I think it's kind of moving that they actually touch on it at all, because they it openly,
it really humanizes Buffy for the audience. There are three things in this open though from this Buffy episode that I want to talk about very quickly before we move on to the rest of the episode. The first thing is that when Buffy's walking into, she's in her nightmare, but we don't know she's in her nightmare. And she's walking in, she's got this stake in her hand, right? Well, in future episodes of Buffy, you're going to see her when she has the stake, she's like battle ready. She's like, her legs are spread apart just a little bit so that she's got some, what do you call it?
It's a power pose.
Yeah, it's like a power pose or whatever. In this, she hasn't developed the power pose yet. She's holding it like a girl. And so it's early in it. And I think that when either Sarah Michelle Gellar saw herself in this episode, or maybe the producer saw her in this episode, they were like, oh, that isn't working. She doesn't look powerful. She looks weak. Or maybe they meant for her to look weak because of what was happening in this dream. I don't know which is true, but I noted it and thought, oh, I wonder which way. I wonder if this caused future episodes, or that was there to visually tell us something about where she was mentally. Don't know.
I'm guessing that they actually knew that.
Oh,
yeah, my guess is that they know that she's just, her acting is showing a victim rather than the capable, able Buffy that she really is.
Sure. And then the second thing is that I think that this was here to inform the audience about, at least subtly, about the Master's mesmeric powers or whatever that we're going to see in the season finale. Because he is capable of like doing the vampire thing, and where people are halted as a result of his gaze or whatever mental powers he's using. And I think that they're trying to like inform you about that, so it doesn't come out of so much left field when we get to the season finale.
Okay.
And then the other thing that happened in this that I thought was really interesting, and this is definitely a Whedon thing from a screenwriting perspective, is I think that the Master is supposed to represent some sort of like father figure to not only the other vampires, but also to Buffy.
Yeah, I think I dig what you're saying. Yeah.
So anyway, he's like, and that way that's the reason that we need him in this episode, really, is because a lot of it's going to be about Buffy's character story is going to be a lot about her relationship with her father. And so having this other relationship with the Master or whatever happening is equally important. And I think we're still a couple seasons away from Giles developing into the father figure for Buffy.
Yeah, so before we jump into her being at school talking to Willow, let me just kind of piggyback and say I think that that's really so much of what happens in Buffy is the inverting of symbols.
Yes.
So in religion, the only people who are truly religious in the Buffyverse seem to be the lunatics.
Oh,
they are. I mean, think about think about Nathan Fillion's character much later on, and here's the Master, and it's an inversion of faith stuff. It's like an upsideness of it, and then later on when things like the cross has, and you will see cross in this episode. The cross has like a power as a weapon, but it's vacated any other meaning to it. So the religious stuff is instrumentalized, and it's inverted upside down for, it's like kind of an upside down version of it. And I would say the same with the father figure. What you're saying is he's sort of an inversion, the upside down version of what a true father figure is supposed to be. So yeah, it's playing on the dark side image, but we can get more into that.
Love it.
At school, Buffy's talking with Willow about what's coming up in her life. And that, the dad's coming, and something she should be excited about, and typically is excited about. But she says in that, that she's really wondered, if she's the reason her parents got divorced, which is absolutely what kids would think. And
sure.
No matter even if you're told you're not, it is the deep anxiety. And, for her, it's like, hey, I was slaying. I was getting into trouble. No one knew why I was getting into trouble because, I was doing all this good stuff, but I got into trouble. And that just drove my parents apart, maybe.
Sure.
Well, they go into class, and now we have another. I'm referring to these characters as the Buffy version of a red shirt, because they're just like, you learn their name for that one episode, and they're there as like a pawn piece on the chessboard for narrative. This one's name is Wendell. All right.
Uh-huh.
And Wendell's supposed to read from the textbook, and I'll let you kind of say what happens when he opens that book.
When he opens the book, the spiders come out. And it freaks out everybody in the classroom. They see these, and they're not little spiders. Like they're whoever set that up. Yeah. They did a good job making sure they were big and meaty and scary looking.
That's two words I don't like together: spider and meaty.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's pandemonium, and in the meanwhile, there's this little boy who looks like a young Joseph Gordon-Levitt, but it's not. I looked it up. The actor's name is Foley, and by the way, Joseph Gordon-Levitt was acting at this time, and he had long hair. But anyway, it looks a little like him. He's standing in the doorway, creepy. It's totally at this point. Besides the episode title, you don't know it's all going to be about dreams or things of that nature. But it's kind of dreamlike because he's out of place. I mean, his clothing, his size, the way he's standing there, it's completely out of place. He's apologizing in the doorway, right? We know that. I'm sorry. And then we cut from that to the inverse world, and it's the upside down again. This time it's the Master in his lair, and he's with a child himself, and that child is the chosen one. And there's a little dark lesson. It's kind of the inversion of Yoda, right? Because what's he telling him? Like fear is the most powerful force in the world. It's better than love.
Yeah.
Right.
This is the thesis statement of the episode.
So, if it's the thesis statement, I better not get it wrong. Do you have it written down?
I don't have it written down, but that's the deal. Like that's tools for understanding Whedon. I took a course on Shakespeare. They were talking about tools for understanding Shakespeare, right? And and one of the big tools for understanding Shakespeare was that the introduction of any Shakespearean play, somebody's going to have some line of dialogue that's going to introduce you to the characters. And someone else is going to have a line of dialogue that introduces you to the ideas that we're going to be exploring in the play. And I think that Whedon must have taken the same Shakespeare course, and has that ingrained in his head, where he needs to make sure that there is a line of dialogue that tells everyone what thematically is going to be happening in the episode. And that's what we're talking about today is fear.
Yes, the most powerful force in the world can be controlled, right? Okay, very good, very good. That's a good hermeneutical insight, as someone fancy might say.
Yeah, man.
For those of us who don't want to be fancy, say, "Oh, that's a good key to get at what it's all about." I think we go from there to the next morning, and Buffy's definitely, I mean, they keep giving her the nerves. Fear and anxiety pervade the episode. She's nervous about her dad picking her up after school.
Yep.
And Joyce, her mom, very milk toasty as always. She's like, it's all gonna be great, honey. Love your dad. Blah 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 blah. And simply tries to kind of assuage her. And meanwhile, there's this pressing question of why do spiders come out of textbooks? And so the only one to go to is Giles for help here. So I don't know what the school's doing. I don't know if the new principal is going to call a fumigator. I have no idea. But they're going to go to their authority figure on the Hellmouth, which is Giles, and they're going to ask him for.
And of course,
Giles, it's crazy, isn't it?
Yes, when they go to talk to Giles, Giles seems completely lost.
He comes running out of some back hallway. He says, "I was in the stacks," which is my favorite librarian term. The stacks. I always feel like it's a magic place. So he's back in the stacks, and he's clearly disoriented. He's like lost. And he was turned around or something, right? You don't really know what's going on with him, but he's out of sorts. He's trying to collect himself, and and he's got nothing. He's got nothing to tell them. Like he's almost like I don't know. Figure it out yourselves. You know what they say?
Yeah. Usually he's the mentor or the oracle or whatever you want to say regarding that part of the storytelling function. And this time he is the antithesis of that. He's almost a hindrance to them figuring things out.
Yeah, he's the fool.
Yeah,
that's great. Yeah, so they tell him to go talk to Wendell, which that just gets more fun because now they're somewhere on their quad or whatever in this like really cool high school that I always high schools look like. But mine, and Wendell is totally an arachnophile. I mean, he loves spiders.
Yeah.
Someone calls him an insect or a bug, and he even chomps at him. He's like, insects have 6 legs. Arachnids have 8. Why does everyone get that wrong? And it's all kind of like very freshman level biology sort of like dialogue.
Yeah.
And he's kind of obsessive. And he's this weird story about how like he had a great collection of spiders, and he lists some deadly, scary ones for the states, like brown recluses, and which I don't know how you collect them because you're not gonna. Why would you have them? They hide. That's their point. But he had like the Black Widow, but was it his brother who left the?
It was his brother. Yep.
He left the heat lamp on him when he away, and they died, I guess. So he's really upset about it. But that's the reason he tells the story is that they say, has this ever happened before? And it has happened to him in his dreams, I think, because as a response to their untimely death, like it's connected, and so he's really troubled. I mean, he seems unhinged. He seems like scary unhinged. Like
yes,
like I walk away with him with kind of a walk
as scary as a dude with a ponytail can be.
I know, but he seems like the kind of guy who'd come in with some weird plan at school. But anyway,
sure.
Now they're going back to class, right? And Buffy's ready to class, and to me, this rang really kind of true for Scary Dreams.
Oh man, me too.
We don't yet know that's what we're talking about as nightmares, except for the title. But there's Cordelia standing at the door, and she looks at Buffy and she says, "Have you studied for history?"
For the history test, that's right.
Yeah, and Buffy's like, "What?" He has no idea.
I didn't know there was a test today. I haven't studied for it. I haven't read anything. I haven't been to class.
Yeah, so you get that anxiety. There's a lot of dreams about, not nightmares, that are anxiety dreams about test taking. So now she's in the classroom. Cordelia even mentions to her like, does the teacher even know who you are? You always skip this class. Buffy goes and sits down and she starts trying to take the test. Now, have you ever had one of those nightmares where
not the test taking, but the one that plagued me for decades was that I was still in elementary school, and I'm 35 years old. That's when I was having the dream.
Yeah. Well, so we'll get to the one. I'll get to the one we get to the one I actually struggle with. But
okay. So I had that dream over and over again until I went back to school. I went to college late in life. I did my undergrad when I turned 30, had it done by 32, did my first master's degree the 2 years after that, did my second master's degree the 3 years after that. And somewhere in the middle of all that, the nightmares stopped, but I was having nightmares about finishing school forever.
It's awesome. It's awesome and it's not, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
I'm floored by how much school you did in a quick time. But she goes in there and like she can't take the test, right? She can't.
Mm-hmm.
Her pencil breaks, and then she looks at the clock, and time goes fast, and she can't even write her name. She goes, well, at least I know my name. She can't even get it written down. The test is over.
Right.
Oh, and I could feel it. I could feel it for her. It made me, as just a viewer, get a little anxious. And
sure,
yeah. And so she leaves the classroom, and Billy's outside the classroom. This little boy, they call him Billy. Yep. And something happens where this other student talks about taking a break, and she's going to go down this weird stairwell and weird staircase, pardon me, in a school. And she goes down there, and Billy, cautions her about going down there, right? Does he caution her?
Yes, he does. He tries to say something, but I didn't get the impression she even heard him or acknowledged him.
Yeah. And then there's a character, a very scary, monstery character, says Lucky 19, and he attacks her very violently. And at this point in time, I have to tell you, I started getting Nightmare on Elm Street vibes.
Me too, precisely.
Ready?
But actually, I'll say this: Nightmare on Elm Street, but there was a little bit of Jason mixed in with it. Go on.
Well, yes, because this attacker, who is quote unquote the ugly man, as they call him later, Billy calls him the ugly man. He's got a Jason Voorhees vibe.
Yes.
But the fact that this is a show about nightmares, and Freddy's a dream demon, who was once a custodian or a janitor at a public school, living in the boiler room, going downstairs to that lair, and then when you get to Xander's nightmare, the music is. The effect on the synthesizer it's not the same melody as the music from Nightmare, but it called to mind Nightmare on Elm Street to me.
100%. Yeah, I had the impression they were trying to do Nightmare on Elm Street as closely as they could without getting in trouble for doing Nightmare on Elm Street.
Right. And it even, in Nightmare on Elm Street, you had the little kids, the girls doing double dutch with their little nursery rhyme. Well, you don't have that, but Billy, this ethereal little boy, you kind of have a little. At least it's definitely inspired by in a very fun way, I would say.
Definitely.
Yeah. So she's attacked, and she's like, and she's in the hospital for her attack. She's gotten a real thump on the noggin. And at this point, Giles, Buffy, they go to the hospital to interview her. They're on the case. And they find out from a doctor that this is not the first one, that there's this character, Billy, the first one, who's been in a coma for a while now. I don't know how long, but from a similar sort of attack, and he's right nearby. So now if they didn't think something was up, now they know something's up. There's a pattern of behavior.
Yep.
Meanwhile, back at school, there's Willow and Xander is going into his class, just talking with Willow, and Willow's still hung up on the spiders. But I love how they have hung up on it the whole episode. She's hung up on the spiders that have already happened. But as Xander walks into the class, everyone starts laughing, and then it cuts to him, and just Nicholas Brennan always gets the comedy moments. There he is, only wearing his boxer shorts.
Yes, very clear reference to a common nightmare. Right before that, they have like a little throwaway piece in the hallway. I really like some of the throwaway pieces in Buffy. I try to point them out whenever there's one that's good enough to mention. There's a throwaway piece where there's some tough guys hanging out in the hallway, and one of the tough guys.
Yes, I'm sorry, I forgot.
The excitable mother comes in and starts hugging on him and kissing him and stuff, and it's very embarrassing for the poor tough guy.
Yes, because at this point, I will have to say, I do believe if I criticize this episode, or if I'm being a critic, I think it's getting confusing.
Right. Sure.
Because we're introducing nightmares upon nightmares upon nightmares. There's layers of it. What's true? What's not? Are the nightmares in their head, or like in Nightmare on Elm Street? Like what happens in their nightmare doesn't always translate to real life, except for injury and death, right?
Right.
But here it seems like the nightmares are very real things. These spiders are very real. Xander had no clothes. Later on, he's wearing other clothes. He had to find clothes to wear.
Right.
And that's all fodder for comedy. And here you got these like neo greasers talking trash, and then one's mom comes, like you said.
Yes.
Pretty funny. But they're now back to Giles, and as they're trying to go to, again, their sage for wisdom, he's having another sort of a moment. I mean, he's very confused. He's poring over the newspapers, trying to do research, and he just confesses that he can't read. And I guess that we find that that's one of his nightmares, is that he can't read, which is interesting.
I wonder if they were Okay, so here's what went through my head when I saw this part. I wonder if this was a subtle allusion to the idea of imposter syndrome, because I think that one of the things Giles struggles with throughout the series is the idea that he's there to help the Slayer,
Right.
but he is capable of helping the Slayer, really.
Right.
Other
Exactly.
than- yeah.
And yeah, like especially during the musical episode, I mean, that's what he's at. I mean, yeah, many different times he's like, it's time for me to move on. I've done all I can do. Yeah, that's a great insight. Yeah, because it could be deeper than just, oh, I'm afraid I can't read. It's that I'm a phony, or that what I have to bring to the table is literally gone now.
Yeah. I mean, and I feel like Giles goes through that a number of times throughout the series, and so I think that that's actually like an encoded thing that they came up with in the show Bible before they got started.
Interesting. Well, in the newspapers, there's a photo of Billy, and Buffy sees that this Billy has been in a coma for a week, but Buffy's been seeing him around school. He's been saying, "Lucky number 19," and "I'm sorry." And then Giles immediately thinks that this is Billy's astral projection, which is an esoteric term for basically your interior life, your soul, your mind, whatever, being able to leave your body. And in some sense, astral projection is an out-of-body experience. So you hear people on the operating table. But as it is played out within different traditions of esoteric thought, or, and now kind of in that whole world of psi and parapsychology and things of that nature, there's 1,000 different ways to talk about it or split it or think about it.
Sure.
I just think about it as the disembodied nature of yourself being outside of yourself. And that's what he thinks is happening. And as that's happening, the confusion of Giles not being able to read, the papers showing Billy, Buffy coming up with the information, Giles coming up with the thought, in walks Buffy's father into the
Buffy's father.
Yep. And immediately I want to punch him right in the face. That was my knee-jerk reaction to seeing. So it's been a long time since I've seen this. Maybe it's that. Maybe I remember what happened or somewhere deep down, but I just thought, what a jerk. And I wanted to hit him. And I think, he shows up, he walks in, he's been looking for around school. Kind of a strange thing, by the way. My school would not have allowed that. But there's an introduction. I even looked for that. You mentioned that maybe it takes a while for Giles to become the father figure. And I think that's true because it's not here. There's no weirdness. It's just preoccupied with the fact he can't read. Buffy wants to go talk to her dad. And he came early to talk to her, which, so he takes her aside and they go off. And that's where they leave that for at least the moment.
Right.
Well, no, actually, no, I think they cut right to.
Yeah, they cut right to it. Yeah. Giles has a moment where he looks at a paper and still can't read, and then we cut to Buffy and Dad taking a walk, and he basically tells her the bad news, and I'll let you tell the bad news.
Hey, in case you didn't know, your mom and I got divorced because of you, kiddo. Yeah, it really is you. And, also beyond that, I thought you would be much brighter than you are. I thought you would be, you just basically dressed her down. And Sarah Michelle Gellar, very, very, I think her acting here was so genuine. I mean,
yes,
she's able to be so vulnerable. I mean, I just think sometimes even when I was younger, and I basically just, when I was younger, watched, had a crush on her. I guess I didn't even realize just maybe I think the ability of her acting. I mean, it really is effective. She was very vulnerable. And the tears well up, and you could tell she's hurt. I mean, just to the core.
She does an amazing job with these human moments. The one that put it over the top for me, we'll talk about it when we get to this episode because it's not this season, it's season 5, is the body.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, let's not even talk about it. That's a miraculous episode. I mean, it's...
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, we'll get there. No, I agree with you 100%. So, but you can tell, I mean, and this is a nightmare that's deeper than all the other nightmares, I think.
Yeah, 100%. She does an amazing job with these human moments, and this is one that, like, if you're really into it and you're really paying attention, and it doesn't bring at least the corner of a tear to your eye, I don't know that you're paying attention.
But all the other ones are just anxiety dreams that are common. Yeah. They're just they're dreams that manifest during our anxiety. This is a deeply personal existential worry. And the dad gets up to leave her, Buffy, as she is emotionally bloodied and bruised, and Buffy noticed there's Billy over there watching all this happen. We cut now to Xander, Willow. They meet in the library, and there they realize that the nightmares are becoming real. I mean, like, now there's no longer any question. The nightmares are entered to the sphere of reality. And then Giles is kind of, catching up that maybe Billy's projection is like it's like now, like, he's crossed into this thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, he's trapped into the nightmare. He's trapped in the nightmare world, and it's bringing that nightmare world into our world. And, like,
yes,
over is happening, and we're going to begin seeing it on camera, but it's coming in. And I thought that part was kind of interesting, how one world, the lines between the worlds are becoming narrow, and one's pressing in on another.
Certainly agreed.
Yeah.
And then we get a moment of levity, because one of the things that I love about Buffy is that when they start getting dark, when they start tugging on your heartstrings too much, they will often reverse course emotionally and give you that moment to laugh, And so here we see Cordelia's hair. She looks like a geek. She looks like a nerd. She's wearing She's wearing all the wrong clothes. She's got the wrong hairdo. She's got the little pins in her hair that she would have worn when she was 8 or something. And she screams, and it is just as funny as it can be.
She's saying, "I'm not," she's being forced to join the chess club. She's, "I promise."
That's right.
And her hair looks the way that Hermione Granger's is supposed to look.
Right.
Like from
and did look in the first movie, but the
first movie, that's right. Which is, you remember last week when we watched the last episode, you wondered about if they switched the timelines of the episodes, right? Because and here's a joke that I mean, it's at least a recurring joke where in last episode, Giles says, "Your hair," and Cordelia freaks out, right?
Right.
So I like that. That was well done to call it back, or at least connect the two episodes.
Sure.
As Xander this is where it starts getting very nightmarish on Elm Street to me with the music, because Xander's entering into a nightmare where he's walking into kind of the schools, like it looks like it's been completely disheveled and broken down, like an apocalypse has run through it. It's going to look the way the school looks later during many of their apocalyptic moments, but the hallways have chocolate bars laying everywhere, and for whatever reason, he just picks them up and starts eating them, and I'm like, okay, I'm not just picking up random chocolate bars and eating them, but he is. And then there is, and I guess this calls to a lot of different fears that people have. There is a clown from his birthday, and he's knife wielding, and he is a very scary looking clown. He's a menacing.
Yes, certainly.
And I don't know what it is, but just like last time we talked about, there's a psychological thing of fear dolls that look somewhat human-like, but not quite right. There's something like the clown face there's a lot of theory about it. I'm no expert, but there's something about clown faces that have the ability.
Uncanny Valley.
Yeah.
Uncanny Valley.
Yeah, that's right. And so here's the clown, supposed to be happy, but it's menacing.
Yeah.
Attacking him. And then we cut to Willow, and Willow finds herself in an opera. And she can't sing, and that's their fear, and that's mine, Alan. When you talk about my recurring dream, I will still have anxiety dreams where I'm supposed to get up in front of an audience and speak, and I haven't prepared at all. And
my goodness!
In my mind, I tell myself, "Don't worry," because one of my abilities is extemporaneous speech, and I can.
I have to hand it to you, man. You're not just whistling Dixie right now. You did a really good job with that.
My old mentor used to call it also pulling from the overflow. When he goes, when you first start teaching, like, you teach everything you know about a topic, and then the more and more information and learning you have, you hardly teach anything you know about a topic. You have all this overflow, so that, like, on the fly you can pull it out for wherever the class needs to go.
Right.
So I've amassed the overflow, so I can stand up and talk. And so in my dream, I'm like, well, okay, I'll just get up and I will pull some stuff out and put it together in a way that might work for this moment. But when I stand up, I can't get words out. I have a hard time putting sentences together. That's my nightmare. It's just a version of Willow's. There's this opera singer singing in Italian, I think, and they look at her, and she's like, "Is it my line?" And the guy, he gets gruff again, and she finally squeaks something out, and it's
right.
It's awful. So
it's
I know
awful.
I know that one.
funny.
So she
Not necessarily a nightmare, but I will mention this sort of in response to your nightmare, is that I, for many years, made my living as a professional musician. And part of the reason I don't think that that was really the right move for me, and why I like so much better what I do now, is that while I love music and I love the design of music, that's really my love, is the design of music. I'm a terrible stage performer. I stand up and do my thing, and but I don't do a good job with the crowd interaction and all those sorts of things. But I do still play gigs from time to time, and I want to tell you a story very quickly, quick aside, about a wedding I played a few months ago, because it was definitely rooted in fear, and I made a mistake, and I think it connects to something that you and I talk about a lot. So I'm going to tell you about it as quickly as I can, and then we'll get back to the point, which is Buffy. So I played this wedding a few months ago, and the bride specifically hired us because she wanted me to play a couple classical pieces and her walking down the aisle of music on the banjo. And I'm a pretty decent Irish banjo player, so I wasn't worried about it at all. But there's a completely different touch between playing the guitar and playing the banjo. So I'd been playing the guitar for all of the earlier music, and then we were supposed to switch. I was supposed to switch to banjo, and when I switched to banjo in this particular instance, it was rushed. Like there was supposed to be a little break before, so that I could kind of like recenter. Not that wasn't why the break, but that was what I was going to use the break for, was to sort of recenter and remember the touch for the banjo and get going. But when it actually happened, I just had to grab the banjo and start going. And I didn't have that moment to recenter, and my hand was shaking so bad. because I hadn't had my moment to like rejigger touch, that I barely got that piece of music out, man. So just so you know, the fears of performance are real, even if I'm not having nightmares about them.
They are absolutely. No, I believe that. Sufjan Stevens, I think he's a musician. Like he plays the banjo like a guitar. That's how he plays it, I think.
Sure.
Yeah. Anyway, well, we can talk more about banjo.
Yeah, later. That's right.
Cool. It's a cool instrument. But yeah, so we're following Buffy. She's in a cemetery, and it's dark, and she's with Billy. I think she's trying to help Billy.
That's right. At this point, she's completely interacting with Billy.
Yeah,
in his astral form.
Yes, and they're running away from the ugly man. That's what's happened. And for whatever reason, Buffy says like, he's too strong for me. So I guess in nightmare form, she can't fight off this ugly man.
Right.
Jason Voorhees-ish sort of. He's not quite Michael Myers-ish, but because he grunts a lot, but he's got that kind of affect to him of Jason, I think, and he's and he's trying to chase them down, and she's running away, and they go from day into almost like right through a wall that is between space and time into the night of the cemetery, of the graveyard cemetery, and they come by this newly, like, this is open grave. I wasn't sure actually when I saw it if it was a new grave or an old grave, someone being dug up, but the master shows up and he starts attacking Buffy, tells her that she's prettier than the last Slayer. So he's got bona fides. He's been around the block, and Buffy's trying to talk herself, you're dreaming, wake up, wake up, wake up. But the master bests her, throws her in the coffin, and buries her alive, which is not something I've ever dreamt about, but it is definitely one of my worst fears.
Yes.
There's a horror film. They made it twice. One of them's got Kiefer Sutherland and Sandra Bullock, and I think is it called Alive or it's called Awake? I'll have to look that up. But in the movie, what makes it so scary is I think it's got Jeff Daniels. What makes it so scary is Kiefer Sutherland's with his girlfriend. In the first scene, they stop at a gas station and they're on a trip, and she disappears. And she's just gone. And you find out very early on who killed her. And as he's searching for her and his life is falling apart, he ends up having a meeting with the killer, and the killer, he wants to know what happens to her, and he makes this agreement with the killer. She goes, if you let me drug you, basically, and like I will show you exactly what happened to her. And so that's like the whole thing. He's that obsessed. And meanwhile, when he wakes up, he finds himself buried alive, which is the terrifying thought. That's what happened to her. And there's more to the story, but man alive, that has been something I've just thought about. Oh my gosh, terrifying. Others mean.
By the way, I believe it's called The Vanishing. Is that right?
The Vanishing. You are right. Absolutely. Okay,
Yeah. Brilliant little movie. That was back in the day when you could make a small budget film and people would actually go see it. That was a beautiful one.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of what I thought about when I saw Buffy in there. And
Sure.
She's sitting there trying, and the dirt's falling in on her between the cracks.
Mhm.
Cheap coffin.
Yep.
And Xander and Willow being chased by the crazy clown. And I loved it. This was the best part of the episode to me. Xander goes, wait, and he turns around and he just punches the clown right in the face.
Yeah, man.
And I love it because he confronts the fear, and everyone wants to punch a clown in the face. I mean, who doesn't? Like, and then Giles explains as they get to that same cemetery spot that his worst fear is Buffy's death, because he sees the tombstone with that word, with a name, and then there's a kind of a Carrie moment, because in the loosed grave out comes a hand, and is Buffy's, and they pull her out. So the only thing to do then, what do you do then? What do you do when you're living in someone else's nightmares, and your nightmares are somehow wedded with theirs, but you're trapped in their nightmare world? What do you do? Well, they say, I guess what we got to do is wake up Billy. We got to wake him up.
Right.
Oh, I can remember the fact that when she came out of the grave, she was changed.
She's a vampire. Yeah, she's a vampire when she comes out of the grave. That's right.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah, so she's all vamped out in the face.
Yeah, and it's a great contrast with Willow, because Willow's still dressed up for her opera performance.
That's right. She's still there. Yep, they're still in the nightmare. All right, so they're at the hospital, and they find Billy, and Billy is staring back at himself. So this is the astral projection. This is the soul or the spirit looking down on yourself, like you hear about happening in OR rooms.
Yep.
And in the hospital, his big bad is the ugly man. The ugly man who's and Buffy confronts the ugly man, and she knocks him out, I guess, but encourages at the same time for Billy to face him. So the cue is from Xander that you need to face your fear.
That's exactly right.
And Billy's able to wake up, and now everything in the world is no longer defined by the nightmare. It's
all right. And part of the reason that we knew that he had to confront his fear was because they look out the window and see everyone's nightmares are flying around, and it's, mass hysteria.
Yes.
Across the field.
Yes. And Buffy does that sometimes, where the big bad sort of like it affects everybody all at once in the same. So their biggest terrible thing is happening to them, but together. Like they do mass hysteria several different times. Halloween once, and then once more with Feeling, but we'll get to that.
Exactly right.
And so what's the real problem? It's not this.
So then when the boy wakes up, in walks his baseball coach, and he's there to visit the boy, but then we find out that he refers to the boy as I can never remember the number. Lucky 19, is that right?
Yes, 19, I believe.
And that clues Buffy in that he is the physical manifestation of the nightmare of the ugly man, and that somehow he is responsible for Billy's situation. And
all because Billy made an out.
And then started talking about it. Yep.
Yeah. So he hurt him in some way. And
we get the impression that he's one of those coaches who gets unhinged and gets really violent whenever his players don't act exactly like he wants them to, and so he probably, it seemed, what I remember is that he did in fact beat Billy after Billy like messed up some play, and you probably know way more about that than I do because I am not the sports guy.
Yeah, it seems as though he must have hit him. And then felt bad about it. Like sometimes beaters do that. Sometimes they do. That's not it's inexcusable, and justice is going to happen. That's where it leaves us, is with justice is going to happen. There is a final scene with the Master and the Chosen One down in his lair, and down there he is talking the way he talks about. Forlornly about his, but there's going to be a time where we're going to get her, and there's a piece of wood he places his hand on and it kind of burns him, but he's doing it and withstanding the pain. And the camera is back, and it is a shabbily built cross. And I'm not sure why on earth it would be in a vampire dungeon, but it's there.
But it's there. That's right.
So I think it's just there. I think ultimately it's there to highlight something about, his power and his vampireness and all that stuff. It's just kind of using the tropes, but it just made me think again about how religion is often used in Buffy. And it's, the Master is more religious than any of the Scoobies. He's just religious in a vampiric way. And he's kind of...
Don't you think it was also an allusion to the Master facing his own fears and showing everyone that he had already sort of conquered that?
And, well, I didn't think about that, but you're right. Now that you say that out loud, you're right. Yeah. Remember I told you I fell asleep?
That's right. That's right.
I was waking up at that point. Yeah. So yeah, I should have probably just put that together, but you got it. You got it.
The other thing that happens is there's a little coda scene with Buffy and the Scoobies, and her dad shows up, her real dad, as opposed to the nightmare dad. And he is excited to see her, and they hop in the car and try to play together.
Later on, and we always reference Once More with Feeling, or I always do, because it's...
Oh, yeah, it's a great one.
Willow's got this line that says, "I've got a theory, some kid is dreaming, and we're all stuck inside his wacky Broadway nightmare." And that is referencing
this episode. Mm-hmm. That's right. Right.
Well, Alan, Vox ranked this one 112th out of 144 episodes.
So we're getting better episodes now.
We are. There's some mixed reviews. When I read the reviews that people said, some people thought it was a good balance of camp, and some people thought it was confusing, and some thought it did well. I mean, I would say that it was. I don't know how you do it better in in the format from dream to dream to dream, but it does inherently make it rather confusing about where you are at some point, right?
Yeah, I guess so. I think that one of the big problems for Buffy was the network that it was on. Like. When people were watching the WB, which is what it was on originally, I think they were expecting very straightforward teen fare, And Buffy had ambitions of being something other than that. And I think that was difficult for people to reconcile. We've talked before about all the shows that owe a great debt to Buffy, Smallville, Merlin, Wednesday, so on and so forth. And what I would say about all of those shows, Percy Jackson, what I would say about all of those shows is that they weren't swinging for the fences like Buffy was in terms of the metaphors and the symbology. None of them have. And I think that while the reason we're still talking about Buffy is because it was swinging for the fences in those ways, I think that when it was trying to be better than its genre, it was very confusing for the majority of people trying to watch it, just in general.
Well, that's probably a very astute observation. I think I say probably. I mean, I think that is an astute observation, not hedging my compliment. I'm just hedging on my personal feelings because, as I reiterated many times together with you, I was in Buffy's grade, right? So like wherever she is where I'm at in life. And
sure.
I'm trying to think back to how I received it. And I think I was just really into horror. Like I would go to the video store and I looked through the VHS tapes in the horror section, and I was looking for horror that wasn't just, I was not only into like some like the B-rated films and like the just exploitation films. I wasn't just looking for splatter gore stuff. I was looking for something that was truly scary, played with dark themes, and sometimes was elevated. I did like if I could find a good vampire tale. I really struggled to find good vampire tales. And so I was just kind of drawn to it. And so I was looking, a television show that was playing on those themes. Now, it was the end of a century and the end of a millennium, if you will. And so there was a lot more emerging in TV and film. It was apocalyptic and more horror, more sci-fi. So there was going to be more of it, whether it was, what was that, with Alyssa Milano and Shannon Doherty, who just passed. What was that?
Charmed. Charmed
was coming out. I mean, they all came out after. But yeah, I was really, really interested and drawn to these things. So I might have just been like happy for something that was also entertaining, and also it was hip. It was cool, So
Buffy did pretty good in the ratings, but it was it always struggled. They never knew from season to season if they were going to get a new season, because the real problem for Buffy, which ultimately ended Angel for the same reasons, is that they grew viewership from season 1 to season 2, grew viewership from season 2 to season 3, grew viewership from season 3 to season 4, but then it stagnated. They were not able to get more viewers after that. And so the WB ultimately canceled Buffy after season 5, not because it wasn't getting an appropriate viewership, but because they thought they would do a better job growing viewership with a different series. And then Buffy had to move to a different network thereafter in order to do its last 2 seasons.
Yeah, you've said before on this podcast that the Angel doesn't work as well as Buffy because these are because of the teen drama metaphor, the fears of teenage. And I've been thinking since then about like, yeah, so how does that work? How would it continue? Like, I've been trying to think through it because I think you're right. I mean, I think it just becomes one bigger apocalypse after another, and you got to have a deeper through line to make it palatable. And I think that any good horror really just exposes what's making us anxious and fearful. I mean, at least
exactly.
And yeah. So it's only later when I was more in college, and especially when I got into grad school and studying storytelling, philosophy, theology, and those kinds of humanities fields, that I became really interested in what it was saying and what it knew it was saying and what it didn't, but it was still saying it. And I'm very fascinated by how in the Whedonverse in general, concepts of the sacred, the person, and those things are utilized. And and I think in a lot of ways, Whedon had a real good pulse on a lot of the zeitgeist, notwithstanding obviously his bad behavior and all that stuff, because that clearly he was clearly not keeping up with his intellectual beliefs. But at any rate, so
you said that earlier, and I want to make one more observation, and then I think we'll close this one. You were talking earlier about how all the people who are religious or whatever are the crazies, and I think that actually culminates on Angel when we have the character who is worshiping the old ones. Do you remember this business?
Yes.
It's a direct allusion to H.P. Lovecraft kind of stuff, and I remember I just wanted to make the comment that I think you're 100% right about that, because everyone who has some sort of religious belief in Buffy is clearly like off the rails insane.
Yeah.
And I don't think that I ever noticed that until you just now mentioned it.
Well, let's keep an eye and see if that's an accurate memory, and see if there's anybody who's religious in a way that is, in a lot of ways, I think what we're saying is properly liberal, and I don't mean left of center. I mean properly brought through a sort of a blend of democratic enlightenment sort of thought. So it's not just an oppressive kind of theocracy.
Sure.
Let's see if there's an openness to anyone's religiosity.
All right, cool.
But where do we go from here? Next episode's called Out of Mind, Out of Sight. And by that title, I have no clue, no memory. So I'm excited.
Yeah, I don't remember it either. So we'll find out. All right. Thanks, man. See you soon.
All right. See y'all. Take care.